The race for California Insurance Commissioner probably sounds really fucking boring to you, but it's actually attracting a lot of attention and money as increasingly frequent disasters have shaken up the insurance industry. It's one of the lower profile positions on the ballot, charged with regulating the insurance industry operating in the state and approving insurance rates. And the race has gotten super crowded, very similar to the governor's race, and money has started to flood in as insurers have their nefarious agenda. After the wildfires California had over the past decade, insurers in the state have wanted to raise the rates while also limiting the coverage. So I spoke to two of the progressives running to stop insurers from taking advantage of working class people in the state. Jane Kim is a Democrat, an attorney, and represented San Francisco's District 6 on the Board of Supervisors between 2011 and 2019. She is a member of San Francisco's Democratic County Central Committee, and she is currently the executive director of the California Working Families Party. Lalo Vargas is a third-party socialist, has been a teacher at LAUSD for the past 5 years, and is a member of UTLA, the teachers union. We had a really interesting conversation about what this role actually covers and what the progressive policies are. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Hey guys, a quick note before we begin today's episode. I am not personally endorsing any candidates in this series. The purpose of these episodes is to present to you each candidate's views, policies, and background so that you can make the most informed decision for you at the ballot box. Make sure to do your own research, form your own opinions, and use your critical thinking skills as you decide who to vote for this election season. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast today. I have a really special guest for you. Jane is here. Welcome.
Thank you.
For the people who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm running for one of the most important offices that you probably haven't heard of. And not you, but many people haven't heard of.
Yes.
It oversees a $3.3 trillion industry, which, by the way, despite the narrative we read about in press, is doing so well.
Yeah.
In 2024, this industry made $170 billion net in profits, with its top 10 CEOs making $391 million.
Whoa.
And meanwhile, premiums are going up. They're canceling our coverage. And even if we have insurance, they fight our claims every step of the way.
Yes.
And so I think the current system is broken. And, you know, on the other hand, on the consumer side, we require us to have insurance to drive to work or to school, to qualify for a mortgage, to buy a home, to open a business of any kind. And so we have to make insurance affordable and available. Otherwise, we're shutting everyday Californians out of our economy.
Yeah.
So about me,
yes.
I am the California director of Working Families Party.
Okay.
And prior to that, I was the California political director for Senator Bernie Sanders. And before that, I spent 12 years as an elected. I served on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and School Board. I'm really proud to have worked on landmark legislation. I passed the first $15 minimum wage ordinance in the state of California.
Wow.
I passed an initiative that has now made San Francisco the only city to make community college tuition free.
Nice.
For every resident, and a $140 million annual revenue measure that is now making early childhood education affordable for every working and middle class family in San Francisco.
Love it. So you have a background in progressive policy in California.
Yeah, so I am a civil rights attorney. I was a youth organizer when I started my career.
Nice.
I am an elected official, and the last 4 years I've been the California director of Working Families Party.
Nice. I love it. Okay, so we are in desperate need of like really good progressive policy. So I'm glad that you have this background so like we can actually get into the weeds of it because, as you know, California has one of the largest wealth disparities in the country. Yep. We are also a very unaffordable state and in Los Angeles City. I actually used to live in San Francisco. I used to live in the Bay Area, more on the west side, so on the in Berkeley and Oakland area.
Okay.
So I used to work in San Francisco, but I had to live outside of the city because rent just wasn't affordable inside of the city. So, you know, having that lived experience, which is, I would say, most people's lived experience. Is that something that you've considered as you have run for, multiple things and as insurance commissioner? Have you thought about people's lived experience when you're running for something like this?
Yeah, well, this is our lived experience. Yeah. And California is becoming so increasingly unaffordable, but I think that expensive homes, expensive groceries, expensive insurance is a product of policy failure.
Right.
So more than an affordability crisis, we have a political courage crisis.
Yeah.
We need really good political leadership at a time, because we can't have a state that teachers and nurses and restaurant workers can't afford to live in. Yeah. We don't. That's not a community I want to be a part of. And so when I served on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, I negotiated more affordable housing than any California legislator at the time. I fought for the strongest tenant protections in the country that we have now here in San Francisco. And so it was really important that part of my fight was to combat what I think is the most challenging issue in this country today, which is the decimation of the middle class and our gross wealth inequality.
Yes.
We have more billionaires in California than anywhere else in the world, and we have the highest poverty rate.
I believe it. Yeah. And it's definitely something that we've seen a lot of people talk about in like the governor's race, the mayor's race, but how does a position like insurance commissioner kind of play into that? Because I know it's important, but I don't think people have a good grasp of it. So can you help explain that?
So insurance has this outside say in who gets to build wealth in this country. Again, who gets to drive to work or to school, who gets to own a home, who gets to open a business or even a nonprofit. And it is becoming so increasingly unaffordable that it is a part of what's driving inaffordability in California. But also, if you can't get insurance, you can't participate in the economy. Right. So this office oversees that industry. There's zero federal oversight of insurance. And it licenses who gets to do business here. It sets the ground rules for how they do business. And it ensures that the insurance companies actually pay out the claims that they're contractually obligated to pay. So one example I'll give is that some estimate that insurance industry steals anywhere from $1.7 to $3 billion annually from Californians in claims that they've denied, delayed, or underpaid. We've all experienced it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we should be penalized for using the business that we paid for years.
Yeah.
So when you file a claim, I want to freeze your rate and your coverage. And then two, every day they deny, delay, or underpay a valid claim, I want them to pay you interest. When we're late on our premiums, we have to pay a penalty, or they cancel us. So we got to level that playing field. And right now, this business is doing so well, as I mentioned. 2 weeks ago, one of the biggest insurance companies in the country, Travelers, announced that they did so well just in the first quarter that they had $2.2 billion in excess capital.
That's crazy.
Meanwhile, our car insurance, home insurance, everything is going up,
yes.
right? So you know what they did with the $2.2 billion? They didn't give discounts. They didn't give refunds.
Not.
No. They gave it all to their wealthy shareholders.
Of course they did.
It's a really profitable business, and every billionaire invests in it.
Yeah. And it's so obvious too, right? Because there's all this talk, again, usually in like the governor or mayor's race, about how, well, we can't piss off the insurance people because they're just going to leave the state, right? They're going to stop insuring us. And so we have to keep them happy. We have to do whatever they want. Meanwhile, none of us can get, our claims ever like paid out, or, they deny things out of, whatever
it's a business
excuse that they want to do. Yeah. And this, like you said, the CEOs are paid very, very well.
Yeah.
And so why do you think there is so much talk about keeping insurance companies happy? Is it lobbying? Like, what is this about?
Yeah, it's all a business strategy. So right now we have two choices in California: pay more or they exit. And that's not a healthy market. That's a hostage situation.
Yes.
And so the insurance commissioner's role is to be that champion for everyday Californians. And I think that this under the radar, under leveraged office that many of us don't pay attention to could be this powerful ally of everyday Californians. And that's what I want to turn this office into, to be a fighter and champion of working people. And I think the only way that we are going to make insurance affordable and available is to, one, we have to invest in prevention, like fireproofing and floodproofing. But second, I'm the only candidate that's proposing a nonprofit, publicly run insurance program.
Oh, interesting. See, this is something that I definitely want you to get into. Like, one, how would that work? And two, why is that more beneficial than the current standard?
Yeah. So, some of my opponents in this race are saying, oh, we have to let the insurance industry do what it needs to do so we can bring in more competition. And when we bring in more competition, then prices are going to go down. Well, we don't have to hypothesize. Let's look at Texas, Nebraska. They have almost zero regulation of the insurance industry. So tons of competition. Texans pay on average $4,000 more in homeowners insurance than we do.
Wow.
So more competition has not led to lower prices.
Right.
Then we pan out, we go to countries like France, Spain, Japan, New Zealand, Canada, where they all run some type of public nonprofit insurance, guaranteed.
Yeah.
And one example I'll give is Canada, because they're our neighbors. We talk a lot about their single-payer healthcare.
Yes.
Many provinces also have single-payer car insurance.
Oh, interesting.
So my friends in Vancouver, they're part of a single-payer auto insurance program, nonprofit.
Oh.
So during COVID, when collisions went down because people weren't driving, all my friends got hundreds of dollars of refunds because Canada also isn't allowed to keep excess capital in their reserves. So instead of giving $2.2 billion away to shareholders, like what I shared with you, travelers, in British Columbia, they gave it all back to their policyholders.
Nice. So it works very similar to how we think of universal health care working.
Yes.
We could have that for car insurance.
We can have it for car insurance. We can also have it for home disaster insurance. New Zealand has single-payer home disaster insurance. And what they do with the excess capital is they actually plow it back into the community by investing in floodproofing and fireproofing, things that prevent fires from ravaging homes, because they guarantee it to every homeowner. So they can't lower their risk by canceling coverage on what I call the sick homes or the homes with pre-existing conditions.
Right.
They have to invest in risk prevention. That's the only way they can lower future of claim payouts. And it makes so much sense.
Yes.
And in Canada, their single-payer auto insurance invests in filling potholes and making the roads safer.
Right.
Anything that can drive claims to go down.
Yeah. And so why do you think that we don't have something like that right now?
Well, it hasn't been proposed yet in California, which is why I'm running.
Okay.
To put forward these really different ideas. If you're looking for a candidate who's just going to tinker with the system, I'm not your candidate. I believe we have to transform the system, and I think we can make it work.
Yeah.
We can make insurance a policy that actually makes us feel safer, not more anxious. And one of my friends in Canada said it. Because he used to live in California as well.
Yeah.
And when he lived in California, insurance felt like a product.
Yeah.
When he went back to Canada, he said insurance felt like a service. And we're required to have it.
Yeah.
And so how much should the for-profit market be able to profit off of something that we're legally
We
required
have
to have?
Yes.
And I talk to young Californians who are paying $200 to $400 a month on insurance. How can you afford that?
Yeah. And in a city like California, a city like LA, because San Francisco is a little bit different. They have a much better public transportation system, right? I remember riding the BART, not having to drive very far. But in LA, it's such a car-centric city that it makes it really difficult to not have a car. And so not only are you paying for your really expensive car note, because you can't buy a car for $5,000 anymore, right? Like everything is like upwards of
Cars are $50,000.
Yes. And then you have to get the insurance because it's legally required. And if you want to get the insurance, that's another $200 to $400. So it makes it almost impossible to be able to like really thrive in the city when your rent is high, your insurance is high, your car note is high, your groceries are high, right? Insurance should be one of those things that like yes, we have to have it, but it shouldn't be something that you're cutting costs in other places to pay for that.
It makes sense that we require people to get insurance to drive, because if there is a collision, which none of us want, of course we want to make sure that everyone's covered. And no one wants to be in a collision or have a fire in their home or to fall sick. But we get insurance in case those things are going to happen. And then when those things happen, you should get paid out and you shouldn't be penalized for using it.
Right.
It's crazy that when you have to use insurance, they raise your rates or cancel your coverage.
Yeah.
That's a crazy business.
It is. Yeah. And it feels like theft, quite honestly.
Well, actually, in 2024, remember all the politicians were debating what should be counted as a felony for theft. Should it be $498, $598, $898? At what point should we sentence you to prison?
Right.
Meanwhile, the insurance industry steals
Yes.
$1.7 to $3 billion annually
Yes.
from Californians and claims that they're contractually obligated to pay.
Right.
And so another important role of this office is to enforce those laws.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that goes to car insurance, but an aspect of this is also home insurance.
Yeah.
And again, LA, San Francisco, Bay Area, prone to fires. We've had some really disastrous ones over the last 5 to 8 years. How does this particular position kind of deal with homeowners insurance for those who are, privileged enough to even have a home? And how would your position and the types of policies that you're fighting for kind of differ from the opposition?
So this office, again, oversees all property and casualty insurance, which includes home insurance and auto insurance. And the rates are going up for both.
Yeah.
Right? I have homeowners telling me that they're paying as much in insurance as they are on their mortgage, which
Wow.
they didn't even expect when they first bought their home, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, in the last 15 years, our wildfire zones have grown 116%. Right? So 10 years ago, you may not have lived in a wildfire zone, and now you do.
Yeah.
And 10 years from now, we'll have many more people living in wildfire zones. So a couple of things that we should talk about. One is we have to address climate change. We have to. Because the wildfires, the hurricanes, the floods are real. We used to have $1 billion storm every 3 or 4 months. We now have one every 3 weeks in this country.
Wow.
So there is a real reason why home insurance has gone up. What's ironic is that the insurance industry, how they make their money is they take our premiums and they invest it in the stock and bond market.
Yeah.
That's actually their real business. More than insurers, they're banks.
Yeah.
Now, they invest in fossil fuel. They're huge investors in fossil fuel. And they're huge underwriters of fossil fuel, which are driving climate disaster.
Yeah.
And then they cancel on the homes destroyed by it. So I'm the only candidate proposing a public single-payer home disaster insurance program in California.
Okay.
I think the 4th largest economy can afford to do it. France, Spain, New Zealand, which are actually smaller economies than California, have a similar program. And like I said, it's nonprofit, so there's no wealthy shareholders or CEOs to pay out. And when there's excess capital, they invest it in prevention to drive down risk. But ultimately, another important aspect of this program is that they don't invest in fossil fuel.
Yes.
So we get to keep our money. We decide how to invest it. We invest it in clean energy. We make sure that it's an ethical investment fund.
Yes.
And we keep those returns here in California.
And that is possible to do how with your position?
So the insurance commissioner can study and propose this program.
Okay.
And one of the critiques that I get is that it would take time to do.
Yeah.
And that's true.
It'll take too long.
Any real change is going to take time.
Yes. Systemic change takes time.
And it's important that we start doing this now, because I don't want to be in the same place that we are today 5 or 10 years from now. And this is going to impact young Californians the most.
Yeah.
Right? I don't own a home. Many of us don't even think about owning a home anymore.
No.
And so part of how we're going to make California more affordable again is that we have to elect and hire candidates with political courage. That's the only way that we're going to get ourselves out of the position that we're in. And, anytime this country has done something big, whether it's Social Security, Medicare for 65 and older, or even free and universal K through 12 education system, it's been debated. They said it wouldn't work. We made the investment, and it was a huge part of transforming our country and making it more equitable and also building a middle class.
Yeah. And so does your position have to kind of work alongside other electeds, like a governor or a mayor? Okay.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of unilateral power that this office has. So again, this office gets to license anyone that does business here in California. They set the ground rules, and they do the investigations to make sure that the insurance companies aren't committing fraud in our state and are paying out claims.
Yes.
But the big policies like single payer or expanding California's already existing low-cost nonprofit auto insurance program, we would work with the legislature and the governor. By the way, I'm also the only candidate that's proposing to make Medicare for kids a reality in California.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And so there is a little bit of talk right now. Obviously, we're still in primary season. So there's an interesting conversation where the polls are saying that we might get a Republican a Republican governor, for instance. Should that hypothetically happen, would some of the things that you're running on, would they be possible? Because then you'd have to work with somebody who's like in direct opposition to you.
Yeah. So 2 things that I'll say. One, I am on the trail every day talking to voters in Tuolumne, El Dorado, Nevada, San Diego, Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, San Francisco. Yeah. And whether you're a Democrat or Republican, everyone feels like they're getting shafted by the insurance industry. Yeah. Everybody feels that way. So even Republicans are telling me that they want to see someone take on this industry. And they also want to see a nonprofit program because they're tired of getting gouged. Yeah. Right? So that's one. So I think any governor is going to have a lot of pressure to do something about the sky-high cost of insurance. Yeah. So I'm hoping that anyone that's going to be in that office is willing to work with me. The second thing I'll say is when I served on the Board of Supervisors, I was in the minority 6.5 out of 8 years, and I passed more legislation than anyone on the board every single year that I was there. And so it has been really important to me to work with people, to negotiate, to have those hard conversations. Sometimes it would take a whole year, but we were consistent and we negotiated hard. This job is really tough. Being in office is not easy. Yeah. And so, every day that I was there, I was just like, I'm gonna make it worth it. I have a seat at the table. People fought for me to be here. Our ancestors died so that women could run for office, that people of color could run for office one day. I am not gonna give up my seat at the table. I'm gonna fight like hell for our community.
Yes, period. So speaking of that, you mentioned earlier that Bernie Sanders has endorsed you.
Yes.
We love Unc Bern. So we know of Bernie as being the most progressive Democrat, although he usually runs as an independent, but one of the most progressive Democrats that we've seen in our generation.
Yeah.
What is it like to have his endorsement, and also what exactly does that mean for you?
So I'm the first statewide candidate that Bernie Sanders has endorsed in California. I'm really honored to have it. Yeah. I worked for Senator Sanders, and part of how we got to know each other was when I served in the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. I was working on an initiative to make an element of his platform a reality, which is to make community college tuition free. And that's how we got to know each other. And he came out when we made City College tuition free and spoke at our opening. And I was really honored to work for him. So it means a lot. Bernie is still the most popular politician in California.
Yes.
And when I worked for him in 2020, we came in first place in 47 out of 53 congressional districts. And that's when I realized that our electorate is way to the left of our elected officials.
Yeah.
The vast majority of Californians want tuition-free public college, affordable housing, Medicare for all.
Yep.
That is a no-brainer. And he won not just in the quote-unquote progressive areas of LA and San Francisco.
Yeah.
He won in Central Valley. He won in San Bernardino. He won in Imperial.
Yep.
He won in the red areas of California. Everyone is feeling like we don't have a fair shake.
Yeah.
And these billion-dollar corporations are running everything.
Yeah.
And people want a champion who's going to fight back. And that's been Bernie.
Yeah. And I feel like, having gone to some of his rallies, I went to the Fight the Oligarchy rally.
I spoke at that last year.
Yes.
Up in Folsom in Sacramento.
Yes, nice. Yeah, I went to the big one here. It was like 30,000 people. So yes, you're right. He is still in his old age.
It's amazing.
He's still very, very popular.
And by the way, his young staffers have a hard time keeping up with him. They're like running after him. He has so much energy.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that really, kind of speaks volumes in terms of the kind of turnout that he's able to get. But because I think it's explicitly because he has always remained very firm that change comes systemically and that people have to fight for that change.
Yeah.
And that, it really is a class issue, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what speaks to even, conservatives.
Yeah.
That, in 2016, I remember people being like, we like Bernie. And then, he didn't get it. 2020, same thing, didn't get it. But a lot of conservatives also, understand that it is a systemic class issue. And so when you're taking a look at a position like this and you're talking to Bernie and you're working alongside him and you have those similar, values and understanding, how does the oligarchy kind of play a role in the way that insurance specifically is being held? Because we know how, insurance companies are kind of stealing and not paying people out. But the oligarchy specifically seems to be really insidious. And we think of it in terms of, Wall Street. But we don't always think of it in terms of those very tangible things like how much we pay in car insurance. So how are you thinking of this in terms of oligarchy?
Oh gosh, where do I begin?
It's a deep question, sorry.
Yeah, so I talk to small business owners who, by the way, are how many Americans become part of the middle class. It's how my mom was able to buy our first family home. And business owners are now competing with Amazon, right? Who are driving down their prices. And then on the other side, their insurance rates are going up. Yeah. So we're all working so hard and our money just goes to the same, 10 to 20 billion dollar corporations. Then I was talking to an Uber and Lyft driver and he's already making so little. Yeah. And then he showed me his biweekly wages. Yeah. And Uber and Lyft takes insurance money from him out of his paycheck. And then he pays insurance on top of that. Yes. So you're working 40, 60, 80 hours. You're working so hard just to buy groceries and to pay rent. Yeah. And then, these little slices of your salary get taken into insurance, car insurance, home insurance, renter's insurance, you name it. And so it's all been a part of, making sure that all of the wealth that we actually work for just goes to the top. And that's just an untenable situation for this country. And, I'll give another example. I was talking to someone who does nightlife in San Francisco. And I asked him how he was doing. It's just Fridays and Saturdays are back now. People are going out. People come in from around San Francisco. He's like, but the reason why we're not doing as well as we used to is that we don't have people coming in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And he said, young people can't afford to live in San Francisco anymore. So we've lost the people that go out during the week. So Friday and Saturday isn't enough. Wow. And so we're going to destroy cities if we don't make them affordable for young people. Yes. So I'm really worried about the direction that we're going in. And I think this is the time to stand up and fight. Yeah. There's so much wealth in this country and it can just be better distributed. Yeah. And I think part of the reason why democracy is crumbling right now is because the middle class has crumbled. So in the 1970s, middle class Americans used to outnumber rich Americans and poor Americans. Yep. And now the opposite is true. And that is a very dangerous and unstable place to be, where you have so many Americans feeling insecure and a few Americans controlling all the capital.
Yeah.
And this isn't a good place for them either. I mean, we are all safer if everyone can afford childcare and college. You know, even if I'm doing well, I want to make sure all my neighbors can access those things, because I'll be safer, I'll be better off, I'll be happier.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really speaks to a lot of people because, again, this is their lived experience, right? Like, most people live in a city-type environment, and if you can't live where you work, your commute is, you know, longer. And then you have to figure out ways to make the situation work. You know, there was a lot of talk, for instance, Bernie used to talk about this, where people started moving out of cities into the suburbs because of, you know, the whole class divide, right? Like, the upper middle class wanted to have the suburb situation so that they could raise their families and things like that. But what ended up happening is then the suburbs became much more unaffordable, so people started moving back into the cities, and now the cities are becoming unaffordable. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? But I think it is a systemic failure that we continue to be a country that allows the oligarchy to continue to profit off of working class, and then we can't tax them to the degree that we should be taxing them. So then we're forced to be taxing working class, who already is struggling. Like, it just feeds itself. And so, yeah, for me, it's kind of like having to think about these types of things systemically, and then thinking about, okay, what are the things that actually affect me on a day-to-day, and then who do I need to elect in order to make sure that the things that I am living through on a day-to-day basis, like car insurance, like renter's insurance, that those things are actually working for me rather than against me.
Yeah, you know, something else I'll just talk about is the wealthiest among us. I'm talking about the super, extremely rich. They make money by charging us for all these services, insurance or products that we buy, let's say on Amazon or at Target. Then they also make money by doing all these government contracts. So they're taking our tax dollars and plowing them into their companies. All the big companies, Amazon, you know, Tesla, you know, they all take government contracts, and then they don't pay any taxes. So they're taking from the system and they're giving nothing back. And that is going to set up a very untenable, insecure setup. And we're already experiencing it. And we have to fight back. You know, almost 100 years ago, the business community thought they were losing America. And they did all this polling, and they found that more Americans trusted government than they did business. So what did? They started investing in messaging that government was the problem. Because if government's the problem, then and people don't believe in government, then government can't set up rules to protect people, and they can't tax you, right? And so that was kind of their imaginative idea, and it has worked brilliantly. We've been taught government is the problem. And it's not that government hasn't worked, because it obviously hasn't always worked for us. But actually that government is the prize worth fighting for. It's the prize worth fighting for. We should all be running for office. I want everyone to run for office. We should all be running for school board, city council, state legislature, insurance commissioner. Like, we need to govern. We deserve to be at the table. We should be making the decisions for all of our communities. And I actually believe in government more than I ever have before. Not that it works again, but that it can work. It's the only institution whose mandate is to protect and take care of people. And that's what I want to do. And that's what I want all of us to do.
And I think that, you know, specifically for like the millennial generation, we kind of lost hope a little bit of like, everything seems
it's part
so
of the
hard.
strategy though, because when you give up, you're not going to fight.
Yes, exactly. And I think now this like new progressive wave that I'm seeing of like, one, you know, Gen Z is now able to vote and, you know, get really involved in politics. And so that's really helpful. And Gen Zers are much more progressive, you know, voter base. But I think the reason we're seeing this progressive wave is because we see how elected officials have, really let us down, but that they do have the power to do it. They're just not doing it.
They're just not doing it.
Yeah.
And the problem today is that there isn't a lot of daylight between Democrats and Republicans. This two-party system has both been captured by billionaire corporations. And so, you know who the biggest political spender in California is?
No.
Chevron.
Yes, we started talking about this. Yes. And they are getting in elections. They are funding people.
Big oil, big pharma, and big tech are
Yes.
huge contributors.
Yes.
And they do it because it works.
Yeah.
It's an investment for them. It is worth it for them to spend millions, even billions, in electing people that are going to serve them. Because in the long run, they know that they're going to make even more money if they're able to buy politicians.
Yeah.
And Chevron doesn't just give to Republicans. I mean, every Republican in Sacramento takes Chevron money. Democrats also take Chevron money as well.
Yes, they do.
And so I no longer look at electeds as, are you a Democrat or a Republican? I look at, are you here to serve billionaires or are you here to serve working people?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction. And, because this is an elected position.
Yeah.
I think it's just as important to really pay attention, right? Because we know governor, we know mayor, we know city council, right? But not enough attention, I think, is being paid to positions like this, and they're so important because they do affect us on a daily basis.
Well, I think this office has also been underutilized, so
Yeah.
people haven't seen what this office could do to fight
Yes.
for us. And I want to turn this office into an ally and into a counter to the immense wealth inequality that we're seeing right now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
Please go out and vote. Look at your voter guide, Knock LA, DSA, League of Pissed Off Voters. I've been endorsed by the teachers, the nurses, Senator Sanders, and you can check out more information about my platform at janekim.org. And, add us on your socials on Instagram and X. I'm at @JaneKim.
Lalo Vargas is here. Welcome.
Thank you, Lalo. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about, yourself, why you go to protests, and what you're up to now.
Okay, great. Well, I'm always running into a protest because I'm an organizer, but
Yep.
I'm also a full-time high school teacher. I teach in LA Unified. So, I'm always, I have my regular day job where I'm teaching the youth biology, environmental science. But then after work, in my free time, that's when I organize my community. So that part of that involves leading demonstrations in the streets when something is happening. There's an injustice in the world, of which there have been many in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But other parts of it also looks different sometimes. I've organized tenants unions to teach them their rights and so that their landlords will respect those rights. I've organized against school closures, and now I'm also organizing in my union.
Nice.
So that's another big part of what I do.
And your union is the LAUSD.
So I'm part of UTLA.
UTLA.
Yeah, United Teachers Los Angeles. It's
Yes.
around 32,000 educators, not just teachers, but also school psychologists, counselors, a lot of different types of people.
So I wanted to have you on because, yes, as I know you as a community organizer, you're very action oriented, and I always love to see that. You don't seem, at least to me, like the typical politician that's just coming from an elite school and, working at a bank or, for a financial institution or real estate or a billionaire, right? And then they get into politics and it's they're so far removed from community. So tell me a little bit more about the party that you're running under.
Yeah, so I'm part of the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Yeah.
It's a nationwide socialist party. It's made up of ordinary working class people, quote unquote ordinary nurses, teachers.
The normies.
Yeah. And we want to build a better future for the United States and for all of our families and for the planet. And for us, that means building socialism. In California has a long history of socialism. And that's why California has the Peace and Freedom Party. The Peace and Freedom Party is a ballot access party, a socialist ballot access party in the state of California. There used to be more chapters in other states, but right now Peace and Freedom is in California. And as a socialist, I'm also running under the ticket of the Peace and Freedom Party for insurance commissioner. So that's what my current race is about. But yeah, the Peace and Freedom Party and Party for Socialism and Liberation are distinct entities, but they're very close. I think that the way our generation, and when I say our generation, I don't mean like a specific age group. I mean like
Yeah.
everyone who's alive together in this society right now. We're all sort of coming to a different kind of consciousness.
Right.
And that's why we've seen the election of Zohran Mamdani in New York City.
Yep.
And he's, a self-described socialist. There's also another self-described socialist who's the mayor of Seattle now.
Right.
And
We also know
and-
Bernie
and
Sanders,
Bernie Sanders, of
famous, long-time independent.
Yeah. And so I think people are starting to understand that there's more than just the capitalist system that we're sold.
Right.
We might not fully see this or have the same values as like other socialist countries, and even what people consider to be socialist countries can be, very different depending
Yeah.
on who you ask. But I think us here in the United States understand very deeply the capitalist system.
Right.
Even if we don't see exactly how it always functions, we feel it
Right.
in our everyday lives. We see that there's homelessness in our neighborhoods, and at the same time, the priority for our government is to start another war, as opposed to fix
Right.
homelessness or address things like food insecurity. Those are very real essentials, necessities that our government should be taking care of. Food, housing, the planet, having
Yeah.
clean air for our communities. These are basic essentials. And yet our government is saying that those are superfluous, that
Right.
their core program is going after other countries' sovereignty.
Right. The military is like the highest funded right now, right? Military ICE is now the highest funded. The military complex in this country is just crazy. And instead, we could have universal health care and we could have universal child care, and we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what our task is, I think, historically, is like trying to come to a collective understanding of what is socialism and what do we mean by it.
Yeah.
What is it that our communities actually need? Because it's not going to be a copy-pasted version of what has existed elsewhere or in the past.
And, obviously, like, I don't think socialism is a bad word, but there's a lot, I would say there's definitely that generational divide between like boomers, Gen Xers versus like millennial, Gen Zers who are much more interested in seeing our capitalist system change dramatically.
Capitalism isn't working,
Right.
and especially in California. California has 39 million residents. A vast majority, it's something like 40% of those folks are living paycheck to paycheck. So this isn't really a system that works for us. It works to make profit for people at the top of these multi-billion-dollar industries. They're the ones who are raking in all of the fruits of our labor, the working class's labor.
Yep.
And I think that, when all we have to do is look at the failures of our current government, we don't have expanded public transportation system, even like other capitalist countries do.
Right.
We don't have fully funded public housing for everyone. We can't even guarantee education for everyone or healthcare, or that children do not go hungry in this country. And I think
Right.
all of those things really amount to a criminal system that doesn't work in our interests. And so I think for most people in the state, they have nothing to lose by embracing socialism. But again, I think it requires like articulating what we mean by it.
Exactly. Yeah. So my first question is, how would you maintain independence from insurance companies? Because I think that what could very easily happen, which has probably happened before, and you can let me know if it has or hasn't, is that somebody who's running for insurance commissioner could be very cozy with the capitalist mentality of insurance companies, where they're like, the more profit, the better. I don't know if there's like a situation where, if you run for insurance commissioner, you can't have worked for an insurance company. I don't know if that's true or not. It's probably not, but how would you be different?
Okay, it's interesting that you bring that last part up.
Yeah.
I'll touch on that in a moment. So I'm running independently with the Peace and Freedom Party.
Yeah.
And as you said, a lot of people might think, well, why don't you run with the Democrats if
Right.
you're progressive and you're a socialist? You could run with DSA, or you could run and get more of the Democratic support and the infrastructure.
Right.
For me, it's not so much about just getting elected as fast as possible. That would certainly be a route that, you know, that's an option. But to me, it's important to maintain that independence. It means that we have to construct a real and viable alternative.
Okay.
And so a big part of this campaign is constructing the Peace and Freedom Party as the home, the political and electoral expression of working class people and of labor unions as well.
Yeah.
This, you know, the social movement that has been forced until now really to vote for either a billionaire-backed Democrat or a billionaire-backed Republican. And so what we're saying is, if the billionaires get to have two parties, then the working class needs its own.
Nice.
And,
I like that tagline.
Yeah, that's a good one. And, you know, so you mentioned, you know, what are the qualifications? Well, the Republicans in the state legislature have introduced a bill that would require the insurance commissioner to have served in an executive position in insurance companies for at least 5 years.
Stop.
Or in executive government for at least 10 years. So that's a proposal right now that's on the floor.
Wow. And this is Republican-led.
It's Republican-led, yeah. Wow. But it's intended to keep candidates like myself out of the race.
Correct. But it's also intended to keep the capitalist profits up for the insurance companies. And I think, you know, not to bring up Luigi so fast, but but I think a lot of people really woke up to this idea of like, that it is a strategy for them to increase the prices without increasing any of the benefits and keeping people really stuck in not getting nearly as much as, you know, what they should be for the amount that they're paying for. So you can imagine that a lot of candidates would, you know, potentially work for these insurance companies, have, you know, some sort of ties to them, and this powerful position would support their profits going up, right? So yeah, it's such an interesting, you know, position that most people don't even know about.
The insurance lobby is one of the most powerful lobbies, if not the most powerful lobby in the United States. And I think that what's telling about the Luigi case isn't so much what happened around the crime or the jury and all of that.
Allegedly.
It's more so, I think, about how the public has reacted to it. And I think the public understands that the real criminals are the ones who are delaying and denying claims for people and ruining people's lives. And sometimes resulting in deaths of people who are denied for care for their medical condition. And I think that public outrage at the insurance companies is very valid because we're seeing it in the aftermath of the LA fires too. How many people are still waiting to come back to their homes to rebuild.
So I actually want to get into that. So in California, we had the Altadena fires, the Palisades fires that happened. Has it already been 2 years or is it only 1 year? I think it's been a year.
We've passed 1 year.
Yeah. So a year and some change ago, really devastated at least this side of the state. But there's also been other fires, right? Like the Bay Area tends to have almost on a yearly basis really massive fires that like really affect people. You know, a lot of people went homeless in some of those fires. Same thing as here in LA. So, you know, the natural disaster thing like kind of bleeds into so much, right? Like environmentalism and how this country has really failed in terms of bringing about better environmentalist policies. The Trump administration / regime has rolled back a lot of that, right? And Trump himself had a lot of smoke for us, no pun intended, with the situation with the fires that we had. But in terms of like the Palisades, Malibu area, and we can talk about Altadena as well, that, you know, famously, a lot of the indigenous communities have been speaking out about, you know, not continuing to build in those areas because it's very actually natural for that area to have fires that will regenerate the soil and the environment. And yet we continue having, the wealth inequality in the Palisades and Malibu, where $1 million homes are continuing to be built there, even though it's a fire zone. So tell me a little bit about how important the insurance commissioner position is when it comes to these types of fires.
Yeah, right now what's happening with climate change is that we're experiencing climate change as a result of and through the lens of the capitalist system.
Right.
And my earliest memory of capitalist climate change catastrophe is Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
And I was in elementary school when that happened, and we've seen what happens under capitalism under such devastating conditions is people lose their homes, they are displaced, and even as institutions that are public institutions can get eroded. And for example, in New Orleans, after Katrina, every single public school in New Orleans is a charter school.
Right.
And that's like the dream of the privatizers,
Yeah.
is to turn every school into a charter school.
Every single one, yeah.
And-
I actually lived in Houston when Katrina happened.
You did?
Yeah, I was older than you, though.
Yeah.
I don't remember, was I in middle school or high school? I think I was just entering high school when Katrina happened. And I had to... I volunteered to help with a lot of like the displaced animals that got left behind that had to get rescued, sent to Houston to get reunited with the families from New Orleans that moved to Houston. That was like a really traumatic thing. But, also being Puerto Rican, like there's so many hurricanes in Puerto Rico. My family, was deeply affected by Hurricane Maria, and a lot of the insurance companies there, being a colony of the U.S., a territory of the U.S., insurance companies also did not want to pay out. So, I think it affects so many people, even just outside of California.
And insurance is supposed to be the safety net. We need insurance. Our communities and civilizations have had insurance, for millennia, whether it was like just storing a little bit of food away for the winter,
Right.
for the hard months when you're in times of abundance. Maybe those were like primitive forms of insurance. Now we have this insurance system that's supposed to function as a safety net.
Right.
But what ends up happening is, in the search for endless profit, the insurance companies are incentivized to not pay out claims.
Right. To deny claims.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or to delay it as long as possible, and then to give you something mediocre at the very
Right.
end when you needed it earlier.
Exactly.
And so I think the insurance commissioner's role is, especially going forward after these wildfires, is going to be really important to articulating how we move in the face of climate change. There's no way to really, because right now in California, there's an insurance crisis.
Yeah.
The crisis is insurance companies don't want to insure people anymore at the same rates as before.
Right.
They want to charge way more. They're actually trying to make the argument that we're paying too little for insurance in California.
I think I heard about that because, they say like it's too risky to have properties here. It's too risky to insure people here.
And it's true that insurance companies are businesses. They're not charities or
Right.
mutual aid groups that are going to, donate money to they exist to make money.
Right.
And so therein lies the problem, is that because insurance is not a public good, but is now
Right.
a commodity that's bought and sold for profit, that is what makes the current crisis so difficult to address. And that's why really the ultimate solution would be creating a public system, to say that your government will back you up.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about a wildfire or a flood or a hurricane, because no matter what happens, the government's going to help you rebuild your home.
Right. Okay, good. So my question for you, because I did see that you were going for a public option, which I think people have gotten more used to hearing in terms of like seeing how Mamdani has chosen to do his campaign, won the campaign, and is now, his first 100 days has been really successful.
Yeah.
So in terms of a public option, like what would that specifically look like? Like how would you implement that?
Yeah. So right now, when we pay into an insurance company, all the people who pay into it for, let's say, their home to protect it against a wildfire, they're paying into this pool of risk. Let's say it's just as an example, $1 million. Well, the insurance company has to raise $1 million worth of risk from your premiums, from all the people. But then the insurance company also has to raise more than that, because it's got to pay its agents and its adjusters and its multi-million-dollar CEO salaries. And so then a public option removes all of that overhead because it's subsidized by the government. And it says, we're going to use people's premiums you might still have to pay for insurance, but it would be a lot lower cost.
Right.
And those dollars, instead of going to this army of people whose job it is to not give you and to not pay out your claim,
Basically, yeah.
then those premiums can get recycled and used for things like fire mitigation, for hardening homes, to pay for upgrades, and to make our cities environmentally friendly. It really needs massive government investment. There's these cities that are being tested in different parts of the world called sponge cities, which use native plants and a lot of indigenous knowledge.
Yes, I just learned about this concept, funny enough, on Instagram. Somebody was explaining the concept of a sponge city with like literal like plants.
Yeah.
And they showed like what happens during the rainfall, and like if you don't have a certain type of soil structure and like plants to like kind of soak up all of that rainwater, then you get flooding. So it was really interesting that I just found that last night.
Yeah, and those are things that we could have under capitalism, especially in the United States, which is the richest country in the world, and especially in California, which is the biggest economy in the States. We could be funding these types of initiatives. But the problem is that many CEOs, billionaires, hoard a big chunk of that wealth, and we don't have access to it.
Right. And so what would you say to somebody who's like, I don't want the government to like take over insurance, because then it might make it worse, right? Like it might make the situation worse, where, you know, especially under the Trump administration, you know, where they want to keep all that federal money for things like ICE to, you know, separate families and deport people. So, you know, what would you say to somebody who's a little bit skeptical about a public option?
Yeah. You know, this is something that, well, public options do exist in other capitalist countries.
Yeah.
Canada, New Zealand, they have public options that exist alongside the private ones. So people can get public insurance at low cost, and then a lot of people also get private insurance. Realistically, we would have to, I would say that myself, I would have to be okay with that sort of middle ground.
Right.
Because building a public insurance, a public insurer would take time, and it would be a process.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the only way we really make a public insurance option viable and make it work for people is abolishing insurance companies altogether. And that's really the stance that more working class people should take, because I mean, what is it that insurance companies do? Like for us, realistically, they're very good at taking our money.
Yes.
But they're a parasitic industry that doesn't actually provide a net benefit to society. The government can do it better, but it has to be, but we have to essentially seize the assets of the insurance companies. Otherwise, our dollars, I mean, you ask people in Altadena what happened to their community.
Right.
Many of them are paying for GoFundMes for their neighbors.
Right.
Anyways, they're paying more out of their own money.
It has to be mutual aid, because the government's not doing anything. The, you know, insurance companies don't want to pay.
Yeah.
They want to, you know, increase the rates when you rebuild, if you can even rebuild, right? So like, yeah, it seems, and honestly, I think, you know, for those of us who are, for instance, for abolishing ICE, we know that that institution doesn't need to exist because it didn't exist before. So I think for anybody that's kind of like, well, he's saying abolish all insurance companies, like, what am I going to do? If you can wrap your brain around the concept of abolishing ICE and creating a system that actually, you know, works better, right? Like for us in terms of abolishing ICE, that would mean that you would make it an easier process for somebody to be documented, right? And that process, it would be less expensive. So it removes the barrier to entry. So it actually makes the immigration process a lot smoother, a lot safer, no separation of families, right? When it comes to insurance companies, how would you kind of, you know, build that picture for people?
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, people need insurance. We need our health taken care of, but what we don't need is the insurance companies. So that's the for-profit side of it is entirely opposed to our interests. And I think, you know, many people want to work with that. They want to kind of have this they want to play it safe with the insurance companies. Because the insurance companies do have, up until now, a lot of leverage. And what they do is they hold the whole state of California hostage. They say, if you don't pay what we want, then we're going to leave the state entirely. And some insurers have left the state. They don't want to write policies for homeowners. And so people are getting dropped and they're like, well, what do we do? And so the reality is the insurance companies are leaving anyways.
Right.
They are, and they're pocketing decades of premiums. You know, they're sitting on these multi-billion-dollar piles. In the case of State Farm, the parent company has $147 billion.
Wow.
That's enough to solve homelessness and hunger and rebuild Altadena and the Palisades multiple times over.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, for everyone very quickly too. Like it could happen in a year.
Yeah.
But to your point, since there's no other option, right? Like all you have is the current insurance companies that exist and whichever ones are left in the state. There's no public option. So you have no other choice but either to not be insured or to be insured with whatever monopoly is left.
Yeah. And that happened in Florida.
Yeah.
In Florida, after the massive hurricanes and catastrophes and flooding, the state stepped in and most of the insurers left. Most of the insurance companies left. But what was also missing, it was an organized people's movement. And that's what I mean when I talk about history. I'm talking about things like the civil rights movement that were able to end an institution that at the time felt so permanent, which was the institution of Jim Crow. You know, that was, you know, to your point about, you know, how can we wrap our heads around abolishing ICE or insurance companies when they permeate so much of our life.
Right.
But people have undone injustices. People have smashed institutions like this, but it takes us not being spectators in the political process anymore.
Correct. Okay, I want to finish this out with this bomb-ass quote that you had.
Okay.
So obviously I did my research. Okay, so you've said that, quote, a public insurance plan would allow maximum coverage through a tax on those who are responsible for the climate crisis. California, without billionaires, could fund a public insurer. Mic drop. Tell me a little bit more about how billionaires are ruining everything.
Oh, great. I mean, this is just the type of system that we live under. Anything that you need to survive, you have to cross the troll on the bridge first. And that troll is like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or any, you know, you name it, any of the CEOs that stand between what we need to survive and us.
Yes.
And really, they're only that wealthy because of what we create, and also because of the exploitation of countries in the global south. My family's from Mexico. Anyone from Latin America knows that Elon Musk and the half of the U.S. military is looking at the resources in Latin America to pillage them, and across the world too. And so that kind of endless drive for profit has hurt us in our home countries. It's hurting us now here, even though we wake up every day, we drive the trucks, we maintain the roads, we teach the children, we care for the sick. The majority of our wealth is hoarded and gate kept by these billionaires. California has 194 billionaires and they own like 25% of the wealth.
Correct. We have a lot of billionaires here. Actually, I would love at a different time to get your thoughts on the billionaires who continue to run for Congress, Senate, now governors, mayors. Like it's a problem. But thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to have you. I know that insurance commissioner is like not the forefront of people's like, oh, I got to vote for insurance commissioner, but you make it really accessible and really easy to discuss. So thank you again for being here, and we'll have to have you back to talk more stuff. I mean, you're very pro-Palestine, which we love. You're anti the Iran war and anti-imperialist, which we love. So we'll definitely have to have you back for more conversations and to see how your campaign goes.
Primary is June 2nd, so hopefully I'll be back. Thank you for having me.